Chair recognizes Madam Clerk.
Item 1 is a presentation of the fourth quarter ending December 31, 2021 investment reports for the 1945-49 pension plans, along with the January 2022 update. Ms. Heather Siegler from Morgan Stanley.
Thank you very much. Mayor, Commissioner Donna, thank you very much for having me. I'm going to go through my report. How do I get it to show on here? I see it here, I just don't see it up on the screen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. So we'll dive in and kind of go through and talk about giving an update on the markets at where we were through the end of the year, as well as kind of an outlook of what we think is going to happen for 2022. We're already off to kind of a bumpy start, and then I'll give you the performance results for the 49 and 45 plan for the end of the year. 2021, we ended the year with really solid performance overall. There were a few brief sell-offs that we had throughout the year, but ending the S&P 500 for the 12 months ending at the end of the year was up 28.7%. The Dow up 20.95%. The Russell Midcap was up 22.58%, and then your smallest stocks in the U.S., the Russell 2000, were up 14.8%. In fact, the S&P 500 actually had 70 all-time highs in the year 2021. And so just a great year overall. There were several stories that really could have derailed and put the market into a tailspin, but honestly, the market just seemed to brush them off throughout the year. We started off the year with a contested presidential election. We had Capitol riots, historically high inflation through the year, supply chain disruptions. The market was forecasted to have a correction throughout the year that really did not materialize. And then we had COVID-19, on to Delta, and then on to Omicron. And so there were a lot of things that really could have set the market back, but the market was very resilient. And it's really hard to kind of talk about the 2021 story without thinking about the Federal Reserve, because that's been kind of the highlight of the year, just waiting to see what was going to happen then. The Fed kept interest rates through 2021 near zero. They've continued throughout the year to add liquidity to the markets. The bond buying program is going to stop next month in March, and the expectation are that the first Fed increase will be in the March meeting as well. When we ended the year, if we were having this meeting on January 1st, I would have told you the expectation was for 3 to 4 increases in interest rates for this year. The market is pricing in around 7 increases at this point. And so the market has really changed their mindset on what the Fed is going to do and how we're going to have that in priced in for the year. Even though we had really impressive results for 2021, we do think that the expectation for 2022 is going to be a little more volatile, and you've seen that already for the beginning of the year. And when we look at the update, you'll see those numbers as well. But we think that this year is really going to take and bring the imbalances that we saw last year. We're going to resolve some of those issues. Really, we're thinking the business cycle will normalize from the extremes that we saw in 2021. We think that we'll see reflationary rebalancing, where we're going to have higher normal and real rates for this year and higher than average growth and inflation rates. And so the expectation was that, and the thought process, that we may have peaked out in some of our inflation numbers in January. That remains to be seen, but we did see extremely high inflation for the month. We do think the yield curve is going to steepen, and that profit margins are going to be squeezed because of the higher rising cost, but that we think the price to earnings ratio of the market may come down and be compressed. And so we do think there will be continued volatility for the first half of the year, but that the range-bound trading for the S&P for the year. And so we're not as optimistic as we were coming into 2021 as we are in 2022. Just going to skip forward to the numbers you can see here. We have the developed international markets, which we look at the MSCI EFA index, positive 11.26% for the last year, and then the emerging markets were actually negative 2.22% for the year. Fixed income markets were negative for the year as well. We're down 1.5% because of those rising interest rates that we talked about. The market prices those in long before the Fed actually takes their first action. So we've seen that through the end of last year, and even more so towards since we ended the year through February. If we take a look at the 1949 plan, we began the year with a market value of $74,873,434. We transferred out from your investment account to your operating account to pay benefits and pay your pensioners $3,417,011. We had an investment gain for the year of $12,170,375. So we ended the year at $83,626,798. If you look to the left side of your screen, you can see that for the equity breakdown, we are in line with Georgia Code and the investment policy with total equity exposure of 74.16%. Total fixed income exposure at 24.15. We've stayed a little overweight to equities throughout last year because of the interest rate environment. We didn't think we were going to make a lot of money in the fixed income market. We turned out to be correct in that. We have started, as we've needed funds, we've moved money from the equity market, and so we're kind of bringing those numbers down throughout this year. If we look at performance, NFJ, which is your large cap value manager, they really follow that Benjamin Graham style of value investing. Where fiscal year they were up 29.47%, which was ahead of their benchmark. At Atlanta, which is your large cap core manager, trailed a little bit, up 25.44, no concerns there. But they really focus on companies that have accelerating growth, and so it would make sense that they'd underperform in a year as strong as we had last year. MDT, which is your all cap manager, up 30.10%, ahead of their benchmark as well. Your two international managers, we had Lazard, which is your more value-oriented manager. They're really focusing on profitable companies that are selling at a discount, have been a little out of favor, but they were up 6.68% for the fiscal year, trailed the benchmark a little bit. And then Thornburg, which is your international more growth-oriented manager, up fiscal year 6.15%. Trailed marginally, but no concerns there. Then we take a look at the next page. We're looking at your fixed income manager. Your fixed income manager was down 0.77% for the fiscal year, which actually was ahead of their benchmark, which was down 1.5%, which gives you a total return for the fiscal year of 17.10 on a gross basis and 16.34% on a net basis. So a great year for the 49 plan. Any questions on the 49 plan before I move to the 45 plan? Okay, thank you. All right. Oh, let me come back. Let me show you the update first. Sorry, I forgot to put that in there. We have, this is the update. I actually put this through February 8th because we've had so much volatility in the market. This is when I sent the report over. And so you can see so far year to date, we are negative, down 3.4%. The market, if we look at today, is down about 7.5%. So we're doing better than the overall market, but that volatility we think will continue. So the first couple of quarters that I present to you. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Still a lot of year to go, but we've started off to a little bit of a rough start. All right, 45 plan. We began the year with $5,708,518. We transferred out $378,530 to pay pensioners for operating. We had an investment gain of the year of $779,472, which brought us to our ending market value of $6,109,459. And so we are in line, again, with Georgia Code. This is considered a small plan, so we have lower equity exposure. And so our total equity is 54.95%, more fixed income here, so we're going to have a lower return for the year. Fixed income was 41.9%, and then we keep that cash because we are transferring monthly cash out to pay those benefits. I'll go through these a little bit quicker because they're going to look very similar. Your large cap value manager up 30.03%. Your large cap core manager at Atlanta was up 25.32%. All cap core MDT was up 30.14%. And then we have your fixed income manager down 0.71%. So that gave you the total for the 45 plan of a net of 13.72%, or a gross of 14.46% for the year. So even though we had the lower equity exposure, so a little bit lower return, is still a great year for a plan with 55% exposure. Now we'll go to the bad news, and I'll show you the update. And so the 45 plan, because the fixed income market has been so volatile, even though we had lower equity exposure, that hasn't necessarily helped us this part of the year. And so far we're down 3.3% for the current fiscal year. Any questions on the 45 plan or anything in general?
Continue. All right, we have
Yes,
a
sir.
question. Administrator Dahl.
Am I correct that most of the, I guess, concern around volatility and some of the early expectations that we have, at least for the next quarter, that the market will be volatile is strictly because we see the increased interest rates and we don't know how that's going to affect things overall?
You're absolutely correct. And so when we look at going in historically, when we've gone into the first Fed increase in a cycle, the market is very volatile leading up to it and shortly after that. You take that combined with the geopolitical concerns we have today, and so you have a lot of things going on, but I think a lot of it comes back to the Fed. And so you've seen a lot of volatility already trying to price in what will the Fed do at their March meeting. And so that concern, whether it will be a quarter or a 50 basis point increase, there's concern that the Fed is a little bit behind the curve at this point.
So with that volatility, as well as the, I guess, the upcoming look at inflation, because I know the Feds are looking at making some adjustments as well, what time frame would you say that your organization as well as Augusta should be looking at any potential adjustments that we should make?
The adjustments that we can make, so what we're doing, we're holding a little bit high. Normally we would have taken some of the cash that you see there. We're a little higher than normal. We're putting that to the side because we know we're not going to necessarily make anything in the bond market. We know we've had a lot of volatility right now for that portion. Normally we would have put that back in and start reinvesting it. And so we've had a little bit higher cash. We're waiting for the market to kind of settle out. We think that's going to happen sooner than later. And so there are adjustments that we're making to the allocation, trying to buffer. The best hedge really against inflation are equities. And so you have the exposure there.
But still, I mean, you've made some of those initial adjustments, you know, making us more cash heavy. At what point will you kind of reevaluate to see if that is the appropriate method moving forward, or is there kind of a reassessment period in quarter 2 or quarter 3, or have you already identified that?
Well, we've already started working on that, and so some of what we can do and what we think makes sense is, we're looking at some of our clients for our pension funds because they are the longest of long-term investments. We don't necessarily need the liquidity in the fixed income market that everyone else may need today. And so we're looking at moving some of that exposure towards some of the private credit markets because it gives us less interest rate sensitivity.
Okay.
The downside to that is we have credit risk there, and so we wouldn't do all of our exposure, right? But we think it makes sense to move some of the exposure that direction.
Don.
Motion to receive as information.
So moved.
All right. Without objection. All right, that is received.
All right. Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, next item. Thank you. Bless you. Bless you. Thank you.
Receive as information the amount of 5.0% for COLA for the 1945 and 1949 pension plans. According to plan documents, the index for all items CPI-U for the South Region as published by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics increased 7.4% for the 12 months ending December 2021. Plan documents limit the amount of annual cost of living increase to 5%. This 5% will be effective on March 1st, 2022 benefit payments. just for the record, sir. Without objection.
All right, we'll receive that as information without objection. Okay, without objection. Okay. I believe that's all the business that's before us today.
Yes, sir.
All right. Meeting stands adjourned.
Well, it's on now. Turn it off.
Trying to stay away from some of the technical.
Well, I just turned it off. Okay, you good.
Very good. I'll send this over to you.
Turn it back on and off now.
The landing walk up.
It's come before the commission already.
Last week. All right.
Well, no, it came July 1.
Okay.
We approved the RFC in the draft
people's business. We'll call this meeting to order. Wait a minute. Administrator Donald. Okay. He's coming. Okay. All right, I missed him. He snuck away on me. All right. Okay. All right, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Call your attention to the invocation portion of our agenda, which will be delivered today by Reverend Mark Trim, Senior Pastor of the Metropolitan Community Church of Our Redeemer. Would you please stand?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, community leaders, and members, will you join with me in prayer this afternoon? Amazing God, who is ever our loving Creator and Sustainer of all, we gather in this chamber of the people and collectively ask for your presence and direction in the proceedings today. May your wisdom be evident to each of us as we pray for clarity in the directions that should be taken, so as to ensure the blessings abound continually within Augusta and to our surrounding neighbors. We ask that peace will come within our borders as a result of right choices made for our city today. Guide our mayor and commissioners in this moment as they look to the challenges ahead, and they each meet those opportunities with hearts of grace, mercy, and a desire to govern justly and with pure intentions. As the business and plans for growth of our city and community come before this body, may each be blessed to see with clear understanding that which will result in goodness and the opportunity for all people. We pray that beyond today and throughout the rest of this year, the divine plans of your Spirit will be revealed to each in this room, guided by your peace, empowered by grace for good and an expectant end. God of hope and light, we ask these things with faith and with hope. For you are our light, and you are our Redeemer, and it is in your name that we pray these things and ask. Amen.
I'm going to impose on former Commissioner Guilfoyle, if he would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ms. Ball.
Thank you.
It's been a while.
Thank you, Commissioner Guilfoyle. Reverend Trim, could you please stand? As I shared with you earlier, it's always so comforting for me to look out our window and see that red door. So it gives so much comfort. And thank you for your prayer for wisdom, unity, and divine protection. We receive your thoughtfulness as an act of service for God. May he bless you with peace and love for your kindness shown toward us today, and all the best. Thank you. By these presents be it known that Senior Pastor Mark Trim, Metropolitan Community Church of Our Redeemer, is chaplain of the day. May his spiritual guidance and civic leadership serve as an example for all citizens of Augusta, given under my hand this 15th day of February, 2022, Hardy Davis, Jr., Mayor. Thank you so much.
Would you join me in congratulating Pastor Trim, serving our chaplain of the day? Thank you so much for your service to this great community. Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
it is a great day here in the city of Augusta, and I'm going to take a point of personal privilege today. There's much rhetoric and conversation about where we stand as a community regarding COVID-19. It feels like we've been battling COVID-19 for 3 years. It feels like it. And for many of us, perhaps we have. The ongoing conversation to date is what will we do as it relates to masks, what California does, what Illinois does, what New York does. The last time I checked, we're the great state of Georgia. The last time I checked, we're the city of Augusta. And while this is an important conversation, I do want to urge us to move beyond the place of, in the words of Governor Kemp, pandemic politics, and to find ourselves being our brothers and our sisters' keeper. It's probably more important than anything. And as we continue to take a measured approach about what we do, the ongoing question that it appears many of the members of the commission continue to have is, when will we relinquish our concerns around masks? And what I would encourage all of us to do is, once again, be our brothers and sisters' keeper. Many of us have elderly parents. We have elderly loved ones that we care for. We have children that we care for. And let us not be thoughtless, but rather be thoughtful about what we do, how we do it, and when we do it. I certainly don't have a date in mind, but the last time I checked, this body adopted a measure. It was not through an executive order that we have mask mandates this time, but rather through this act of the members of the Augusta Commission. So I want to remind us of that as we throw rocks and hide our hands, that we have a mask mandate because this body adopted it. And we've seen the effects of COVID. The last time I checked, it's still here. And I want to just urge us, let's be thoughtful and not thoughtless. We've lost loved ones, we've lost co-workers. We have family members that are still wanting to make sure that they stay safe. I know I do. I'd like for them to be around a long, long, long time, particularly after having just funeralized my father-in-law. So let's take a step back from the pandemic politics. Wear a mask, wash your hands, watch your distance. And until we get the green light from the scientists, the folks that are real smart about this kind of thing, let's just be thoughtful about that, okay? Madam Clerk, we'll go to the agenda, of which we can't see on the screens because the screens are out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Call your attention to the recognition portion of our agenda. We will ask Ms. Sherry Bailey from the Georgia Municipal Association, who will be facilitating presentations regarding award recognitions for Commissioner Sean Franham, Brandon Garrett, and Commissioner Catherine McKnight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mayor Davis, and thank you, Commissioners, for having me here today. It is an honor and a privilege to be here. I actually have 4 certificates that I would like to present today to the Commissioners. And just a little brief history about this training and what these certificates mean. The Harold F. Holtz Municipal Training Institute is a series of training programs designed to help city officials enhance their knowledge and skills in municipal-related matters. The Municipal Training Institute is operated through a partnership between the Georgia Municipal Association and the University of Georgia's Carl Vinson Institute of Government. Oversight is provided by the Municipal Training Board, which is comprised of municipal elected officials and representatives from partnering organizations. Ms. Catherine McKnight is actually one of our training board representatives for District 7. So I have 3 different certificates to present today. The first one being the Certificate of Achievement. In order to acquire this certificate, you have to have at least 72 hours of training through the Georgia Municipal Association, including at least 36 hours from the required list of the Newly Elected Officials Institute. The next one is the Certificate of Excellence, which requires 120 hours of training and 54 hours from the required list. And finally is the Robert E. Knox Jr. Municipal Leadership Institute, which is an intensive multi-day seminar that focuses on helping city officials enhance and sharpen their leadership skills. Facilitated in part by a nationally recognized training development consultant, the Leadership Institute includes an interactive simulation exercise that confronts participants with the daily problems of governing and ultimately demonstrates the necessity of communication and collaboration in achieving good governments. So with that, I would like to present Commissioner Brandon Garrett with the Robert E. Knox Leadership Certificate and the Certificate of Achievement. Next, I would like to recognize Commissioner Catherine McKnight for her Certificate of Achievement.
This ain't for me.
And then finally, I would like to recognize Commissioner Sean Frantum for his Certificate of Excellence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherry.
We'll let the honorees get settled. We're proceeding, Mr. Mayor.
I was actually thinking about taking the rest of the day off.
Okay. That worked for me.
That's right, voting.
Since we didn't get much support on that, I'll move. Call your attention to our delegation portion of the agenda. Item number B, Economic Growth Update from Downtown Development Authority Executive Director, Ms. Margaret Woodard.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jack Evans. I'm the chairman of the DDA board.
Jack, would you speak into the microphone?
Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Again, Jack Evans. I'm the chair of the board for the DDA, and very much appreciate the time to update you on a little bit of our progress and tell you a little bit about what we're trying to achieve. The DDA is a very small team, but we have a very active board. They're engaged and fully support Margaret and her staff. Really, we kind of went back to the basics. We focused on our bylaws and went back to 4 categories of work, and we arranged committees around that work. So first of all, we have organization, and that's really about making sure we understand the individuals and the groups and the stakeholders in and around downtown that can make a difference. That's everything from you, from commissioners to citizens and business owners, making sure that we have a good organized network of people to work with. We also have promotion, which is about making sure that we recruit the right kind of businesses to this area and make sure that people are proud of the city and of downtown Augusta. We have design, thinking about the physical spaces, what occurs to people when they're downtown, what are people looking for if we want somebody to bring their business here. What's the experience like for the patrons? And then we have economic restructuring, and that really looks at sort of the portfolio of businesses in downtown Augusta. We might say, what are we missing? What does that city that we love have that we want to bring here? Or think about bottlenecks or problems for some of those categories of businesses. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Hefner to talk about the organization committee and some of the work that he's led in that regard.
Thank you, Jack. And again, James Hefner. I'm a vice chair with the DDA board, and thank each of you for giving us some of your time this afternoon. As Jack said, we thought it was important for us to be able to go back to the basics, and part of that is from an organizational perspective, really helping our constituents in the community understand who we are, what we're focused on, and what are the projects that we're actually trying to promote, enhance, support throughout the downtown area. So, so we felt it was almost paramount upon us to begin telling our story, not just from the perspective of who we are, what we do, what we're focused on, but making sure that we have the opportunity to get out in front of specific constituents that can also help tell the story and be ambassadors to what we're doing. So we've had presentations with Leadership Augusta Executive Forum, which is a small-knit group of community leaders and decision makers at particularly the executive level, representing a vast array of industries. We gave joint DDA CVB presentation to Tourism Conference in May on the importance of partnerships, and I might add that Margaret and Benish Brown, who led that effort, were well received at that event, and certainly delivered a very important message on just what's happening in tourism, and it was very well received. Presentation to the Baptist Ministers Conference, we felt it paramount to be able to get in front of the faith community and share who we are, what we're doing, and really more importantly, be able to understand what are some of their concerns and the things that they're hearing and seeing in their ear on the street, and being able to take that feedback and continue to do the work that we do. And finally, we've spent time presenting over at the Augusta Land Bank Conference back in October of last year, as well as the Augusta Real Estate Investors speaking engagement in November of last year. So it's a difficult proposition to be able to tell your story without collaboration, and we think collaboration is is paramount, again, to what we do. And so collaborating with our partners, we've assisted the HCD with Small Business Relief Fund. Many of you are aware of that program. We've partnered with Jesse Norman, particularly with a program called J-Tank. And if you're familiar with the Shark Tank, J-Tank is a spinoff of that, but we offered young people, high school and middle school, the opportunity to be able to present their business idea and be able to provide them with the support and mentoring and coaching that goes along with someone who's trying to launch a business opportunity. That falls right in line with our mission as a DDA. We've collaborated with the CVB and the Chamber for the TripAdvisor event and the video shoot, partnered with the city for the Christmas tree light up, and also the Planning Committee for the National Community Development Association Conference. So we're out here talking to constituents, making them aware of who we are, and what we're doing and how we can continue to support and be collaborators. I'll turn it over to Margaret. Oh, Jack, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So promotion. The DDA had kind of an old and tired image. We worked on that. We collaborated with local agency Weir Stewart, launched several initiatives to really showcase downtown Augusta and also introduce ourselves back to the community. If you haven't visited our website, it's been completely redone in the past year or so. Lots of new content and resources for people that are thinking about doing business here. Lots of good data and information. This is Richard Green, who was featured in sort of our Faces of Augusta campaign, showing the entrepreneurs that are making a difference and starting businesses downtown and talking about in their own words and their own testimonial, why are they here and what advantages do they see. We think their voice will speak to others. Customer journey. This is information that comes from a source called Place IQ, and it's basically cell phone data. It gives us an idea of what people are really doing. Who's coming to town, where are they coming from, how long do they stay when they're down here, things like that. Unfortunately, we got one baseline year. We got 2019 before everything went crazy. So the next 2 years are going to be asterisk years in our data for sure. But it is interesting to see that if you compare 2019 to 2020 to last year, we are seeing things come back. We're seeing last year was a lot better than 2020, but we still have a long way to go. That's really just a very small snapshot of the information that we get from that source, but good information. Our design committee really is focused on vacant and blight. We think that is a deterrent and a detractor, not just for people thinking about starting a new business in Augusta, but even people in our surrounding communities from patronizing our businesses downtown. So we're taking a hard look at that, and we want to work with the commission and work with city agencies and other organizations to strategically make a meaningful difference. It's got to be right for the business owners. We respect their property rights, but we also have to think about how to make a difference moving forward. Part of that is Facade Grants, and these are relatively small grants, but they make a big difference. You can see the 4 grants that we've awarded here, but you know that $20,000 helped recruit $2.4 million worth of private investment and 42 jobs downtown. So a small thing making a big difference when you partner with the right kind of people. Georgia City's loans. Margaret can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we are the #1 municipality in terms of participation in Georgia City's loans. So we help local businesses apply, and since we've been part of this program, we've awarded 17, 2 of them in 2021 for almost $500,000 there. So again, this is a great resource that we help facilitate for people that want to do business here. And I will turn it over to Margaret to talk about economic restructuring.
For the second year in a row, downtown Augusta is going to see a net gain of 45 new businesses on the Broad Street corridor, and that is pretty strong for a second year in a pandemic. In year number 1, 2020, we did about the same thing. We're at 45 right now. We had 3 business expansions, and expansions are just as important, if not more so, than new businesses, because it shows you've got the downtown is a strong business community, and you need to expand. And this year we saw Keene Printing, Allison South Advertising, and Art on Broad all expand to new locations. In addition, we saw Shared Space, which shuttered in 2020 on Green Street. That was 15,000 square feet of co-working space. They just shut it down during the pandemic. And Danny Levinson reopened last year. We had his ribbon cutting in December, and he is 75% leased. We also saw the Bee's Knees and the Hive, who shuttered, decide to come back under a different business model and have reopened. Downtown housing still remains so strong, and we are thrilled about this. 943 Ellis Street, we cut the ribbon on that last year. It was 12 units at 943 Ellis Street, and it's fully leased. The Commerce Building on 7th and Broad added 3 rental units and added expansion space for Allison South Marketing, which allowed them to bring all their operations under one roof and created 25 new jobs. We saw I forgot the most important number. Let me go back. On this slide right here, we saw $83.1 million in new private investment on the Broad Street corridor. And I'm going to show you some of those projects in a minute. Millhouse Station completed phase 2 in December, 155 units, and they're 50% leased. So the demand is there and continues to grow for downtown Augusta, and that was a $24 million investment for downtown. Other downtown housing, the Row, which is right around the corner from the dental school, is going to be completed in May. It's on Slayton Street. It's 160 units, and they have started pre-leasing. 401 Green Street is under construction, 10 units right at 401 and 18 at 922. And these are 2 examples of Georgia City's loans. We applied for these loans on their behalf to make these projects happen. I also want to go back to this slide to tell you that 943 Ellis and the Commerce Building were recipients of our Georgia Power Facade Grant program. All right, so if you look at a 2-mile radius in downtown Augusta, currently we have 500 new housing units that have been completed or are under construction, and that's $80.5 million in private investment for downtown Augusta. These are exciting numbers, and we hope that they will continue. 2022 is off to a great start as well. 21 new businesses have opened or announced that they are opening. I can't say this, I always mess this up. Phenomenal Noodle. That is Sean White's Asian restaurant, opened last week at the corner of 10th and Broad. And Taco Cat is going to follow in the next couple of weeks and plans on opening. And he's a great success story, by the way, for downtown Augusta. This is his 4th and 5th restaurant. So, I mean, when he's our poster child, we have a video of Sean on our website. And I hope you will go to our website, because we feature a lot of downtown businesses and we ask them to tell the story of why they want to be in downtown. So it's a great sales pitch. There's a wine bar at Broad and 9th that's going to open in March. 1028 Broad Street, leased last week to a new marketing company. And Flowers on Broad and the Escape Room have both expanded so far. Flowers on Broad is expanding to Green Street, and they will be Flowers off Broad. And the Escape Room has added 7 axe throwing rooms, and we're doing a ribbon cutting for them on Friday. And finally, some of you were there, and I appreciate you coming. On February 3rd, we did the groundbreaking for the Standard on Telfair Street. It's where the Greyhound bus station is located and goes all the way down to the historic church on the corner of 11th, and it'll be 136 units. Completion is spring of 2023, and it's a $40 million investment. in downtown Augusta. And that concludes our presentation. Are there
Thank
any
you.
questions?
Thank you, Margaret, Jack, and I know James. I know. It's great to have you guys come. There's a series of questions here. We're going to go to the commissioner from the 6th, the 7th, and the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Ms. Woodard and your team, did y'all know y'all went over y'all 5 minutes? but anyway, my question is, this is great news. I also like the fact, seeing that there was people make their own personal financial investments. That's always a good thing. But my real question is, some of my colleagues, we've been having a little discussion. As we see the growth that you've shown us today, are you concerned about the projects that you're looking before on here and the impact of those things that will have an impact on the businesses downtown as they try to remodel or rebuild Broad Street in terms of these models you see down here? Does that concern you at all?
That's a good question, and thank you. We met with Dr. Malik several weeks ago to discuss this, and we're going to assist the city in any way possible to get the news out. We want to be able to direct people to other parking places on each block. We're looking at alternate parking. We're looking at a series of public service announcements, and we just need to make sure that there is plywood and people can get to the stores. Now, I've worked in 2 cities, Commissioner. One of them went absolutely fabulous because people were so excited to come down and see the construction and everything that was going on. The directional signs were open for business, were good. And I've seen one that didn't go so well, so we're here to help. And
What was the difference in those two, the success and failure?
just information, not keeping the public informed, not saying our constant message over the last 2 years during the pandemic was we're open for business, come on downtown. And we will continue that. In fact, we did a public service announcement that was played on WJBF. It's called The Faces of Downtown. It's on our website. It won a Silver Addy, and it just reminded the general public on a daily basis that downtown is open. So we would probably do something very similar to that.
Mr. Mayor, final question is down the same line. Will you be talking to business owners, try to see how they can best benefit from that? So if it goes well, everybody's excited, and if it busts, they say, well, this is what we all agreed upon, or the masses of us agreed upon as business owners.
Yes,
will you be
we
speaking
will.
with them?
I'm sure we will work with the chamber. Chamber will be involved in these projects to be able to, we're out every day meeting people and talking to people. And, and believe me, when something goes wrong, they dial 722-8000.
Okay.
We're the first number, so we'll hear about it and do everything we can to fix it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just first want to say thank y'all for coming today. I love the new logo. It's like a refresh, rebrand, and I think it was definitely needed, and I think it makes an exciting time here in Augusta. I'm going to put you on the spot with a few questions, though. You mentioned the arches, and the bid went out. When are they going to be installed, or kind of what's the timeline for that?
We wrote the letter awarding it to the contractor today. It's in procurement. They'll award the contract, and they should be completed by the end of this year.
Okay, we'll make sure Commissioner Marion Williams knows that as well, since he was such a big proponent of that. My other 2 questions is we've heard a lot of 2 different buildings downtown I've heard just a lot about. First is a hotel coming downtown. Is that still happening? What's the status of that?
Yes, that is still happening. They made it through the Historic Commission in October and were granted their demolition permits based on resubmitting a site plan and revised facade drawings, and we are working with them on their financing right now. Their plan is to try to break ground in summer of 2022.
Okay, thank you for that. And the last question I have is one of our best buildings was maybe not in the middle with the elevator, but the Lamar building. Kind of where does that was sold, and we heard, and then we hadn't heard anything?
Yes, that was sold. Actually, that was sold to the same developer who's completing the row on Slayton Street.
Okay.
His name is, I always get his name mixed up. His name is Pace Burt, and he is a developer out of Albany. He has purchased the building. It's been completely gutted, and the plan is for 68 apartments, retail on the bottom floor, and meeting space
Thank
on
you.
the glass structure.
Thank you. I appreciate everything. Appreciate the update.
Outstanding. Commissioner from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say what an honor it is to be ex officio of the DDA. I really enjoy working with y'all. And just last Saturday night, I went downtown to see Tony Howard in the Motown Review. And when I got to 13th Street on Broad, my goodness, Broad Street was wall to wall with people. And it went all the way down to 5th Street. I even parked in the Reynolds Street parking deck and walked over to the Imperial. Everybody downtown was having a good time. It was vibrant. Restaurants and lounges were packed, standing room only, waiting room, outside. The work that has been done in downtown to revitalize downtown has been tremendous. And it takes the whole community working with the DDA to make that happen. So along with the DDA, I'd like to thank the community for coming and supporting our downtown corridor. Thank y'all so much.
And the commissioner from the 9th Waves. Okay. Fantastic presentation. Margaret, Jack, James. This is the type of news we want to have you come back and present on a regular basis. DDA all too often has been the unsung hero of what happens in terms of being the engine of fueling economic growth in downtown Augusta. You are, in fact, the #1 provider of Georgia City's loans to small business in the state of Georgia. I do know that. In addition to that, what we see on the horizon moving forward is just good news for this community. I have one thing I want to disagree with the commissioner from the 10th. I don't know. Everyone was not happy, particularly those of us who spent 20 minutes driving around trying to find a place to park.
Hear ya.
Reynolds Street parking deck had a lot of space. All you got to do is park in it and walk.
I'm still recovering from my leg injury. Again, if there are no further questions, this has been fantastic. Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.
Thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
us.
Thank you.
You done?
No, I think they want to talk about a parking management plan now.
Okay.
While our guests are exiting the chamber, I want to bring to everyone's attention in this room, there's a lot of amazing work going on in our city. And this work is not only amazing, it involves so many people in this room and outside of this room. And the reality of it is this is a unique opportunity for all hands to be on deck in the city of Augusta. There's been much conversation talking about what we do with regards to our homeless community. And there's a unique opportunity available for everyone. Annually across the nation, and certainly here in Augusta, we have our annual point-in-time count. That event will take place on February the 23rd from 9 p.m. until 3 a.m. I want you to make a note of this. This is that moment like in church where you said, this is a point to write a note at, a good note. 9 p.m. to 3 a.m., this is our annual point-in-time count. And this is for our homeless population. Linda Bars or April Smith are points of contact. April Smith, that's A Smith 4 at augustaga.gov. And Linda Bars, that's L Bars at csraeoa.org. And I believe that there is a volunteer website available. Let me say it this way. If you want to volunteer and support our efforts around the point in time count, call Director Hawthorne Welcher from Housing and Community Development. I don't have his extension in my head right now. Otherwise, I'd give it out to you. But please do call, and he can help coordinate. They've worked with so many of our partners in the community every year annually, but this is an important effort. Again, this is once again February the 23rd from 9 p.m. until 3 a.m. Okay? And pay attention to the Augusta announcements. They will be sending out more information about that, but I want to get all hands on deck so that we can have an accurate count. That's 9 p.m. to 3 a.m., February the 23rd. And now to our next regularly scheduled program. Madam Clerk, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Call your attention to item number C. Mr. Eugene Lowry, due to an emergency hospitalization, Reverend Charles Utley from the Richmond County Neighborhood Association Alliance regarding their opposition to the rezoning petition Z-2206 in association with properties located at 2723, 25, and 27 Tobacco Road.
All right, Mr. Utley, before you proceed, I do want to make you aware that pursuant to information that we know, these petitions have been denied. You may not have to speak unless you just want to say something, but these petitions have been denied, and that's where they stand at this time. And I don't know if you were aware of that, but they have been denied.
Okay, no, I wasn't, Mayor.
Okay.
But, and again, I'm Charles Utley, and I'm speaking on behalf of our president, Brother Gene Lowry. Unfortunately, he was not able to come, and to each and every one of you in your prospective places of authority, I want to just say that we are very appreciative. Now that I've heard that news, Mr. Mayor, I would be glad to pass it on, because it does bring the area in a position. And you know, we are also interested in whatever is going on in our area. We want to be an asset to the community. And I want to thank you for already taking that, in consideration. And I want to also say that, you know, we are for the climate, for all those even may not know it. And with that plant now being denied, that takes benzene out of our air. Because we want to be able to breathe, and if you get enough benzene, it would also cause you to have several other things. The vomiting, the stomach, the digestive problems, and also rapid heartbeat. And it's near our children. And we want our community to be safe and a place where they can grow and develop to their fullest potential. I'm not going to say anything else, but I couldn't let that go without telling you all how pleased I am just to hear what you have just announced. And I will be sending out a tailspan to all the members and letting them know. Because we do represent approximately 30 communities in the Augusta area. And again, thank y'all so much for making that decision to deny that request.
Mr. Utley, for the record, let me clarify. It has been recommended for denial. I believe that's the appropriate term.
Okay.
Recommended for denial.
For denial.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
I want to make sure that because we're asking for it to be denied.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We ready, sir?
Madam
Okay. Call your attention to the consent agenda, which consists of items 1 through 20. Items 1 through 20. For the benefit of any objectors to our planning petitions, once the petition is read, would you please signify your objections by raising your hand? Call your attention to item number 1. It's a request for a special exception with conditions on property located at 3759 Mike Paget Highway. Are there any objectors? Item number 2 is a request to approve with conditions requesting a rezoning from a zone R1A, one family residential, to a zone R1D, one family residential, affecting property located at 2122 Harding Road. Are there any objectors to this planning petition? Call your attention to item number 3. It's a request for a rezoning for an R3B, multiple family residential, in a Zone B2 general business to a Zone B2 general business, affecting property located at 2723, 27, and 25 Tobacco Road. Are there any objectors to this planning petition? Mr. Administrator, can I get you this? 2. Okay. Item number 4. It's a request for zoning by removing maximum limit of 2 residential dwelling units and the requiring of 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit in accordance with Section 4-2A and Section 18 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, affecting property located at 407 Telfair Street. Are there any objectors to this modification? Okay. Members of the commission, our consent agenda consists of items 1 through 20, with 2 objectors to zoning petition number 3.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item number 7.
I'm sorry, Mr.
That's
Hassan.
number 7. Number 7, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Number 7.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not the author of this one, but I wondered if 21 could be moved to the consent.
Without objection. Chair recognizes Mayor Pro Tem. All right.
Motion to approve as stated on the screen.
Item number 7 is added to,
It's
I'm sorry,
been
pulled
pulled.
from the consent agenda. Item 7
Yeah.
is pulled.
Pulled.
Item 21 added. There you go. All right, voting. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 3rd. State your inquiry. Okay. She waves.
It's unanimous. Mr. Mayor, and just for the record, on item number 8,
Number 8.
just wanted to make sure that the handouts given to you are the items that is a companion to this item, is revised supporting documentation. So we need to make you aware that that's what you're approving today are the handouts. Okay, we have consensus?
Without objection,
Sure.
and those handouts were provided on last week.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're going
Top to
forward.
bottom, Madam Clerk.
Sir.
Top to bottom.
Okay, thank you. Call your attention to item number 7. It's a motion to approve SPLOS 7 overage and the timeline for SPLOS 8.
Attorney Brown, would you approach?
I don't have a problem. Well, they objecting to it being denied, right? That's, see, yeah, Mr. Oatley was, he was in support of it being denied. They just, okay, so you gonna let them two do it?
They were in support of being denied.
Who?
Okay.
They're the petitioner. Okay.
They're the petitioner.
Yeah, you need to go check out.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a new guy. I don't know who the hell that is.
Okay, here's our
Item number
posture.
3.
We're going to go back to item number 3. We're going to go back to item number 3. And Chair recognizes the parliamentary.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. The proper protocol at this point, in that it was, there were objectors to number 3, as well, whom I believe are the petitioners in this matter. The proper procedure at this point would be for the commission to set aside the vote to deny that matter, to approve number 3, and open that matter back up for the objectors to be heard. And after that point, the commission will have another opportunity to vote on the matter.
Motion to open up agenda item number 3.
And that was Mr. Mason, second. Reconsideration for
This is a
item number
motion.
3, Mr. Franum and Mr. Mason.
Right, this is a motion to reconsider the previous action on number 3. All right. Voting. Again, our posture is
Mr.
reconsidering
Garrett
the previous
and Ms.
action
McKnight.
so that we can hear this matter.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Hear
All right.
from the petitioners. Item number 3 is a request for concurrence with the Augusta Planning Commission to deny petition by Mender Singh on behalf of Enterprise Mckinney and Sarhota LLC, requesting a rezoning from a Zone R3B multiple family residential and a Zone B2 general business to a Zone B2 general business, affecting properties located at 2723, 27, and 25 Tobacco Road.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we'll hear from the Planning Department, followed by the petitioners.
Good afternoon. The application Z22-06 pertains to a rezoning affecting 3 parcels. Two of the parcels are zoned for B2 already, and one is zoned R3B, which is multifamily, allowing for the detached and attached residence. The rezoning application would impact roughly about 15,000 square feet. There was a petition that was signed by about 280 people who had concerns about the concept plan and the intended businesses that were going to go into place. The applicant is here to speak, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Delaney. I believe there might be some questions. I'm going to go in this order. All right, I'm going to hear from the petitioners, but if you have questions, I'll take those now. All right, we're going to hear from the petitioners.
Hello, gentlemen. So my name is Mender, and this is my first time speaking on the podium. So I'm the small business owner, and we bought the land, and we try to build up a convenience store and shopping center on the other side. What I heard, the small businesses are the backbone of the economy. So, but last time when we are here, we saw a lot of, community people. They have some questions, and we try to answer the questions, and we try to reach. And I call Miss Darlene on the phone, and we try to explain ourselves that wrong perception what they have about this business. So, but nobody answer. So, but we try to do our best to communicate or work with the community and see what we can do to help or what to improve. So,
hello everybody, my name is Sahib Singh, and I'm a partner with Mr. Mender. And in the last meeting, they were having concerns that by having bringing a convenience store to Tobacco Road would increase the crime or anything like that, because we are going to be serving beer and alcohol there as well. And they also said there was already 5 other, locations of convenience stores on Tobacco Road, but they are very old. They've been there for years. They're not upgraded and modernized. What we're trying to do is bring a more upscale business to Tobacco Road, not just the convenience store. We are also doing a retail space on the other side of the property, which will bring in different businesses. They were concerned that everybody's trying to open a convenience store on that strip. We're trying to tell them that no, not just a convenience store. We are also giving other opportunities. We will have 5 additional spaces available for different styles of businesses to come in. We're trying to work with the community, providing jobs for the locals that are going to be there at our convenience store and other retail shops. We're in no manner trying to disrupt the community or harm it. We're just trying to improve it and help out the best we can. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Sarhota Singh. I believe the first person is the Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner from the 5th.
Question for Mr. Laney.
Okay.
Mr. Laney, there's one question. Is this the same convenience store that Reverend Utley was speaking of?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to the 2 gentlemen who wants to place this here in this particular area. Number one, I'm the commissioner for the district. I never received a call from anyone in reference to attempting to place something out into the community that we represent. Myself and our super district commissioner, Francine Scott, we were looking to, well, first of all, we were at the meeting, the planning commission meeting. We also heard from our residents as well. We are not anti-business by any stretch of the imagination. However, the location and what we mentioned was very, very true. And so what you've got to understand is we are looking for those that are coming out into our community, one, to also have that conversation with us, that communication, so we're good stewards of the land that we have out there so that we can put what the community actually wants and needs out there. And so that's very, very important, and that did not happen. Secondly, right next to the daycare. Now, I know it's not a quote-unquote law, but we do get a chance to weigh in. And right there to the right next to that daycare is a issue in my mind. Also, we have a lot of folks that when they chose that area to live, they weren't thinking in terms of, as they're retiring, right across the street there'd be a convenience store. And that is something that is very, very important to our community, especially on Tobacco Road. And so with that being said, and with all of the information that I've had several conversations and meetings with our Neighborhood Alliance to include Darlene, and they've expressed their concerns to both myself and our Super District Commissioner as well. And at this time, we do not feel that that is the best use at that particular location for a sixth, and I say again, a sixth convenience store, no matter how new. The fact of the matter is, it's the need. We have them. We have more than what we could even desire. But we are looking, I will say, we are looking for some sit-down restaurants. we are looking for that because we're certainly in need of that. So, Mr. Mayor, based on that information that was given to us at the Neighborhood Alliance, those 280 signatures that were there as well, I'm going to make a motion that at this time we'll deny this particular petition, as the Planning and Zoning Board did as well at this particular time.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion to deny with the proper second. At this time, we're going to vote on this matter. Thank you both. Voting.
Mr. Mason. Thank you. It's unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item.
Item number 7, motion to approve SPLOS 7 overage and the timeline for SPLOS 8. And if I could, Mr. Mayor, to read the motion that was in its entirety that was approved by the Administrative Services Committee. A motion to approve the SPLOS 7 overage in the amount of $16.1 million and to approve an extension of 365 days for the Augusta Mini Theater project until February 15, 2023, to provide additional funding and to keep it as an active project during that time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I believe the commissioner from the 6th pulled this item.
Yes, sir.
And
yes, Mr. Mayor.
the commissioner from the 6th is recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. I have a couple of questions here. Number one, thank you, Madam Clerk, for reading the additional part of that. But I would like to ask the attorney a question about that part, a portion of that motion.
Chair recognizes the parliamentarian.
Yes, sir. My question is a part of that motion. We are asking for the 365 days. Should we make the statement about the funding at this time, or go ahead and just pass it, and we can come back and do the funding at a later time? I'll talk about funding at a later time, because I didn't want to see us try to do both of them simultaneously.
I would recommend, Commissioner Hassan, that you do specify in the motion the commitment to the funding.
So leave it as it is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Mayor, but in pulling also, there's a couple other things. The SPLOS 8, the administrator has brought it before us a couple of times, but our meetings were so long, we never actually got a chance to discuss the list and get some clarity on what some of these timelines are. And I'm going to say for another thing, too, while I'm here, is also one of the things that we brought up last week when we were talking about this was Fleming and where we on Fleming Park at this particular time. So can we answer that first before we get into the SPLOS overages and things?
Yeah, I think that's certainly appropriate. And again, I want to draw everyone's attention to the handout that we have in front of us. This says SPLOS 8.
Yes.
And so as we're talking about this,
It's just plus 7 and 8.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. In terms of a timeline, it'd be helpful for us to really lean into that.
Right.
So, all right, Administrator Donald.
Yes, sir. So, Commissioner, and I've asked procurement. I think we're waiting on Mr. White to come down because he'll talk about this a little bit more in detail. You can go to the piece, but I think for Fleming, as a reminder, it's a two-part piece. Out of existing funding, we are able to take care of all of the tear down of those existing wood poles, all of that good stuff. And so the appropriate way that we have looked to do that is leveraging one of the on-call contractors. We have received guidance from procurement that we would actually have to get that approval from the commission to be able to allow them to use that previously procured contract. So I just found that out on Friday evening. Well, actually, I found it out on Monday, but I guess we received that notice from procurement on Friday. And so once that is approved by the commission, then we can start the tear down. Once you approve this agenda item, we would also be able to use that same method to move forward with resolving that lighting challenge. And so we're on pace, but we did have that hiccup with the PO that procurement has stated that we have to get approval from the commission to utilize that on-call contractor. That's new to me, so I asked them to come today to give any insights to the commission on moving forward in that manner.
Mr. Mayor, can I talk to Mr. White?
Commissioner, go ahead and exhaust your questions.
Yes,
Take
sir.
your time.
Yes, sir. Mr. White, in terms of that, I mean, I've approved a lot of on-calls up here. Is that a policy?
It's what a policy, sir?
What the part about we cannot use on-call without commission support?
It's never been articulated that you cannot use an on-call vendor.
So what's the holdup here then?
Well, the holdup was the way they were trying to do it. When you can use an on-call vendor, but a department has to take responsibility for as to why we're using that particular vendor and give us all the support and documentation we need to use that vendor. That did not happen.
Did you have a requisition?
That was it, but you need more than just a requisition.
Did you ask for that in writing?
Did we ask for what?
The additional information that you might have need that you are referring to now.
Yes, sir. It was articulated.
No, did you put it in writing what you were looking for? Because see, it looks like the department keeps wanting it. You know, just about a third different thing. Can't use on call. Now you need support from the commission. Now you need it from the department head. One time we didn't get no request. So it looks like it's back and forth with this department, with the procurement department making a decision to hold this project up. I don't know what's going on, but the commission made last week, and for quite some time now, we want the project to move forward. By the mere fact we want to move forward, that's our approval of the project.
Okay, everybody hold on for a second. Commissioner, you still have the floor, so just
Yeah, so
don't
that's-
worry about
that's-
that. Hold on 1 second. Let's bring everybody up to speed. One of the key concerns that the commissioner from the 6th is raising in particular is as it relates to the Fleming Park project, which is what is of grave concern to those that are wondering where we are. This has been kind of a football, and I think what I hear him saying, and I agree with this, at the point of failure, this body made decisions years ago that whatever it took to get this done, and this is not to besmirch Mr. White or what he's doing. He's simply the messenger today. But I think the message that the commissioner from the 6th is articulating is we really don't need to be here. That there's already been approval given, and whether you sole source it through emergency efforts or whether you are using an on-call vendor Those approvals have already been given because of the significance of getting this park back online and the grave challenges that we've had from lighting. We all know the very unfaithful tragedy that happened there. That's where we are, Administrator. I'm gonna give it back to the Commissioner from the 6th, but that is his point, and I think we've all said that.
May I chime in really quickly, Mayor? So I 100% agree with you, but I think it is important, especially in this moment at this time, to say no. That is a holdup from procurement, and we do need to highlight that because this item has been one that for the last 6 weeks we've been trying to move forward with no clear explanation for why we cannot, and all documentation has been provided, and it should be a resolved issue. So we're hoping that on the floor today that the message from the commission as well as from staff is clear that whatever the behind the scenes moving and grooving is, we remove that stuff and move forward on this project. So I think we've heard very clear from the commission. It was clear stated here on the floor that there is no policy that restricts that usage and that all documentation has been provided. So I think our collective expectation is that we move this forward because the funding is available.
Mr. Mel, I'd ask you a question. Do you think we need to make a motion, or just they should clearly understand this? They need to let this project be done.
What I'm hearing, let me tell you what I'm hearing. I'm translating today.
That's why I went back to you.
we were afraid to do something.
Right.
So now we're coming back to the commission to move the fear out of the way.
Okay.
When you've already given us approval. So what I'd like for you to do is make a motion that all barriers be removed and that this work proceed, as the administrator said. There is no policy that restricts it. So all encumbrances are removed. Motion to approve the work to proceed, particularly at Fleming Park, pursuant to funding already being available, given what we know.
Make a motion to proceed on Fleming Park with everything that you have in place and remove all barriers.
Second.
Administrator Donald, can you speak to the issue of how much, from a project standpoint, we're looking at and those resources, where they're coming from?
Yes, I will speak up because I don't believe the mic is working. Actually was preparing a memorandum for the commission today. So just in general, this project.
I think you're on now, Mr. Administrator.
Got it. Okay, so you can hear me now. So this project would be utilizing RFP 21-155 on-call contract for Augusta infrastructure, routine maintenance, and repair of storm drainage, sidewalk, street lighting, and concrete works as previously approved by the commission. The total cost for the project, and this is total, this would be after you approve the SPLOST 7 overages, meaning that the lighting project would be fully complete, $419,869.85. The pre-work from SPLOST 6, which is what we're really discussing today, which is the tear down, the exact cost is $205,000 with that balance to actually bring the project forward coming out of SPLOST 7 overages. And so, again, this is a parks project, and the project management support is coming from the administrator's office. So the total is $419,869.85, but the shovel-ready portion is $205,000, and again, that would remove those wooden posts, tear down the wrong electrical, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. All right, are there any other questions that we have regarding this? I see a number of names in the queue. Chair recognizes the Chairman of Engineering Services. Well, before. Commissioner from the 6th.
I got Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you.
I'm
Commissioner from the 8th.
Well, I think, do we need to go ahead and vote on this specific item before we continue talking about the SPLOST packages?
Well, we can't. What we want to do is we'll vote on it en masse. We'll vote on it en masse.
Okay.
All right. Continue with the questions. But the Commissioner
just want to clarify, Mayor.
He has gotten clarification, and we know that this particular effort, even if we have to carve it out of this full SPLOST 7, SPLOST 8 overages, we'll do that. And we got a fresh mind today, so we'll make sure that that doesn't get lost.
Well, and the reason I asked that is because I really believe that we need to take this entire SPLOST list back to committee, just because, you know, as I'm looking through this, I'm seeing some items on here that are pretty intriguing, you know, in regards to the depot property, $14 million for that. Yeah, and, you know, just for some clarification around that, as well as some discussion around the timing for some of these parks. I know that some of my colleagues have asked me about that as well, to see if there's a way to move some of these up or down. So I was going to request that we push this back to committee to have a really in-depth conversation around each of these items.
I don't object to that at all. In the event that we do that, I would like to go ahead and vote on the Fleming component of that. All right, I'm going to recognize the commissioner from the, well, we do. Just hold.
Okay, but we had an original
Right.
item too now.
We did. That's my point. All right, we've got a number of items in the people in the queue. I'm going to go to Commissioner all the way down in East Augusta. Commissioner from the first.
The bottom. There we go. Let's. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great questions from my colleagues, and I think I'm going to agree with Commissioner from the 8th here. There are a number of questions that comes to my mind specifically when I look at this. I mean, the first one, it says recommended funding timeline option 1. I'm looking for other options. Excuse me. If there's an option 1, I really hope there's an option 2 or 3, because there are some allocations here that that really does concern me. Now, whether we vote today or not, I want to make sure that, number one, we're not going to be making any kind of moves that will put us at a disadvantage as a city. That's number one, as far as like timing, what have you. But there is a motion on the floor. I would like to make a substitute to send this back to committee so that we can have an opportunity to have our questions answered. But if we don't need that, I want to make it certain if we don't need to do that, but we can still get our questions answered, in a good manner. I think that we need to do that. But here we are with questions, trying to move forward. This is the first time some of us have seen these allocations. I think it'd be best if we didn't do this on the floor today, that we send it back to committee to have this conversation, flesh out any concerns, and then come back in 2 weeks to be ready to approve.
Second.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. All right, I'm going to ask you, we already have a motion on the floor and a second, but I think the commissioner from the 6th should probably amend his motion so that we carve out specifically the Fleming Park component of this, and then the SPLOST 8 list and any other remaining overages be discussed in committee on next week.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to amend my motion and just.
That would be added to the substitute.
Ma'am?
I didn't hear a substitute.
No.
Okay, I might do a substitute then. Go ahead.
So his carve out was the original.
It ain't that serious, Mr. Brown.
Okay.
Okay, hold on.
We lost the original motion.
No, we didn't. No, he's back. So everybody hold. The commissioner from the 6th was amending his motion to include the things that the commissioner from the 1st just said. And that was, again, to take this back. Well, the commissioner from the 5th has some heartburn with the motion.
Well, we got an original motion on the floor at 16.1 that we're not dealing with, and they carved out the thing about the Fleming, so it made that a separate motion. So we got 2 on the floor. I'd like to make a motion that we
third motion?
Approve the 16.1 million and move that forward. We just got one component that we pulled out of the 16.1. What are we delaying?
All right, everybody.
I want to know what we're delaying, because there's a possible third motion in here.
All right, so we're going to clarify this of what our posture is. Chair recognizes the administrator.
Yeah, so I think great point by the commissioner from the 5th. What he is saying is the SPLOST 7 overages are different than the SPLOST 8 timeline. And I think what he is recommending, which would actually, if the commission agrees, you can authorize moving forward with the SPLOST 7 overages, which would take care of the Fleming Park activities, and then you can address the SPLOST 8 timeline at committee. So that is something that you definitely could do as a commission, and it seems like that's where there is potential heartburn, although I did hear Commissioner Garrett mention one piece, which is the $14 million for the depot. That's the parking lot. And so just in case you didn't remember that, that was what that was for. Yeah, say what now? Correct, yeah. So you have to pay it. So you approved to pay it through SPLOST 8. So that's what it was. Yep. But again, I think that that recommendation from the commissioner from District 5 and the mayor pro tem would actually take care of all of the conversation, approving the SPLOST 7 overages, but moving SPLOST 8 timeline conversations back to committee.
All right, so here's what I'd like to do then. If the commissioner from the 6th, because I just want to clean this up, the commissioner from the 6th would withdraw his motion.
I withdraw my motion, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to clarify why I think it's the best thing to do, because we make a motion just to address, like, it's give to see that they're going to have to do just what they alluded to, which I think is ludicrous. So I think my colleague from the 5th has a better motion.
Okay. All right, so hold on. So he's just withdrawing his motion. Okay, he's withdrawing his motion. So we're going to go back to the main motion from the commissioner from the 5th.
Just to approve the 16.1 million, but do we want to add? We just moved to move forward with the 16.1 million.
So here's the motion. Motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor,
Hold on.
there's a substitute motion on the floor as well.
Where did he waives his?
I made a substitute motion.
He withdraws his motion.
Who did?
The commissioner from the 6th. Everybody suspend. The commissioner from the 6th withdraws his motion. There is no motion on the floor.
Yeah, it is.
Thereby, you don't need a substitute.
When his motion was on the floor.
The substitute
Hold on,
becomes the
hold
main.
on. Hold on. The main.
I don't think you heard the
The
substitute.
main.
Did you not hear the substitute?
The main. I never heard a substitute. I never heard a
I made the
substitute.
substitute motion.
The main motion. Everybody suspend. The main motion, the commissioner from the 6th has now withdrawn. Okay? He withdraws his motion. All right? So let's simply get a clean motion. And what I think I heard is that the commissioner from the 5th, the mayor pro tem, has just suggested motion to approve SPLOST 7 overages with expedited work around Fleming Park and to move the timeline for SPLOST 8 back to committee. That's what I think I just heard.
No, that,
What is he doing down there?
yeah. That would now, I'll let you.
Please,
Yeah.
point of clarification.
The mini theater. Okay. All
how
right.
did we get-
We're going to go back.
365 days.
We're going to go back to the parliamentarian. Again, the motion is simple, and that is to approve the SPLOST 7 overages as written with expediting the Fleming Park component and including the Augusta Mini Theater extension of 365 days as an active project.
So moved. Did we get a second on that? Second.
That included the moving of the SPLOST 8 timeline discussion to committee.
I'm still in.
We got substitute motion. What Commissioner Johnson said that was the original substitute, make that the substitute, please.
What is it?
Wait.
Everything goes
I'll
back.
ask the parliamentarian. I don't know what you.
Separate stuff. You talk about a timeline, and then we talk about money. We talk about 16.1 million.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Hold on.
If I could.
Hold on.
I've been sitting
We're
in
talking
queue
about
for a
two
minute.
separate things, guys.
Yeah. You talk about timeline, we can go back and do a timeline. But the money, I'm tired of just throwing this thing around. It's my third week.
I didn't.
Right.
We don't even know what we're voting.
So So in other words, he said he didn't hear you, so.
But see, all, for what he said was send the timeline back to committee.
That's fine, but the timeline can be affected by the spot seven over. If we move something from the spot.
Not necessarily, mostly the H.
Okay.
That's mostly.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. All right, the commission will stand at ease for 5 minutes. The commission will stand at ease for 5 minutes, and I'm gonna let the commissioner from the 1st and the 5th caucus about the concern around the dollars. We'll stand I told you I had a fresh mind today. I'm well rested. Okay, if everyone could take your seats and cease conversations. If everyone can take your seats and cease all conversations, we're going to do two things. We're going to do two things. Again, this is not that difficult. We're going to do two things. Okay. All right, we're going to have two motions. The first motion will be a motion to move SPLOST 8 discussion, or timeline discussion, back to committee. That's the first motion. All right, the Mayor Pro Tem is going to make that motion.
Motion to approve moving the timeline.
Put your mic on. Second.
Motion to approve moving the timeline.
That's the SPLOST 8 timeline discussion back to committee. We have a motion and a second. This is what we're voting on. Only the piece concerning SPLOST 8 timeline back to committee. Okay? That's what you're voting on. Voting.
I don't know. I never even got a chance to answer my question. I'm still in school.
We're breaking this up just so you've got clarity.
I'm still in the queue.
This is the first motion. That is, we're taking SPLOST 8. We can ask the parliamentarian for clarity about that, but we're taking two pieces here. And that first piece is strictly moving it to committee. Okay? All right? And that is to move SPLOST 8 timeline discussion to committee. And that's the next committee meeting. The second part of that motion is,
Where is it?
Why did we vote?
Well, hold on.
the second part of that motion
Yes, Mayor.
is, yes, Chair recognizes parliamentarian.
If you have a motion on the floor, can you not have the clerk read the motion without breakage?
Yeah, we can.
If
We don't
there-
have one on the
if there-
floor yet.
If there's a motion.
Right, we don't have one on the floor yet. We're just constructing.
Okay.
The second part of that motion is to approve SPLOST overages as presented. Again, approve SPLOST 7 overages as presented with the added language of including the Augusta Mini Theater with an extension of 365 days as an active project.
All right, that's all one motion with two parts.
One motion, two parts. Motion to move SPLOST 8 timeline discussion to committee and approve SPLOST 7 overages as presented, including the approval of extending the Augusta Mini Theater for 365 days as an active project.
Motion to approve.
What did we just vote on?
I blame Bobby Williams.
That's what you're voting on, what I just said.
What we going?
Now would be a good time to vote yes.
Wait a minute. Yeah. What the hell we got a parliamentarian for?
We're waiting on the commissioner from the 6th,
Come on, man.
the 2nd, and the 1st.
Mr. Mayor,
Let's get control.
Chair recognizes parliamentarian.
is there only a motion on, one
There's
motion on
only
the
one
floor?
motion on the floor.
There's no substitute motion?
No. There's only one motion on the floor. We never had a main motion because he withdrew his motion, the commissioner from the 6th.
It's unanimous.
Yeah.
Next item.
Well, I guess I'll just stay in the
It's
queue. and I-
unanimous.
Mr. Mayor.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 4th, Sitch and Crowell.
Thank you. I've been sitting in the queue for a long time. I think the vote's already been taken, but I do want to get some clarity here. No, not on that, because I don't have any. It's a done deal. I've been sitting here for 4 months, 5 months now, and I'm just curious as to what is the situation in procurement. Is Ms. Sams not here?
She's here. She's out today.
Okay.
She's on leave, Commissioner.
On leave?
Yeah.
So she's out.
Medical leave.
Can we not talk about that on the floor? Yeah, that's.
I'm just trying to
again,
figure out where people
I know,
are.
I know,
don't
I
see Mr.
understand.
Wright. He said his hands are tied. I'm trying to figure out who's running the ship.
All right.
I think it's,
Madam Clerk, our next item.
we got to do that in legal or something? Because I still need some clarity.
Well, I think you just answered the question, Commissioner, and that is Ms. Sams is out today. She's out today.
Item number 22. Presentation of renderings of downtown Broad Street Tier 1 projects.
Mr.
Chair recognizes Administrator Donald.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think the request from Super District 9 Commissioner and the Commissioner from District 8 was to bring back some visuals of the projects. I think Director Malik gave a pretty thorough overview of where those projects were last week. And we have a variety of visuals that we'll be providing to the commission as requested. But what we have done today is simply brought in some of the visuals of those downtown projects for the edification of the public. And we will print off the balance of those and have those down in the either in the common area downstairs or in the Beasley room. We're working to coordinate that now, but we'll have all of those visuals available. Okay. Well, and also since we did not go through the Broad Street program project last week, if the commission would like, we can, Director Malik is prepared to do so today. So yes, so he said yes.
Good afternoon. I'm going to let John kind of explain the project, and I will take the question and respond to the question. So, John.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Administrator, and guests. This afternoon, I will be giving an update on the Broad Street TIA project. We are currently in the last band and near the end of the initial TIA project lists, of which Broad Street is one of those projects in Band 3. All of the remaining Band 3 projects that were discussed at the Commission meeting recently must have a completed design and let by the Georgia Department of Transportation by the end of this year, 2022. The first slide that's up on the monitor there is, this is the Broad Street concept that was designed by our consultant, Cooper Carey, who is an internationally renowned firm that specializes in architecture, graphic design, historic rehabilitation, landscape architecture, and urban design and planning. This concept was completed and approved in 2016. The Broad Street project is one unified project with three distinct parts. The first part is Broad Street between Washington Road, Calhoun Expressway, and 15th Street. This section is mostly residential with some neighborhood businesses, churches, and the Croc Center complex. The second part is Broad Street between 15th Street and 4th Street, which is predominantly businesses, a business area, and what most people consider the downtown portion of Broad Street. The third part is Broad Street between 4th Street and East Boundary, which is the residential portion and also constitutes the Old Town portion of this project. Each different part of Broad Street has unique uses and traffic patterns, and the concept and design will vary depending on those factors, but tied together for one unified, cohesive project. So I understand that the slide that's up now, there's a lot of information on that slide. It's very small, it's hard to see, but there are some important details I'd like you to take away from this particular slide, and that is that Broad Street will transform from its current state into a multimodal corridor and will dedicate specific areas for passenger vehicles and parking, separated bike lanes, and pedestrian paths with all handicap facilities included. The center of Broad Street will be improved and upgraded to make it more inviting and accessible. Lastly, the area near James Brown statue and the Augusta Common will be enhanced to better honor the legacy of this Augusta icon. And I'll provide more detailed information on the area around the James Brown statue later in this presentation. This approved concept plan and all the concept plans that are up here in front of the dais serve as the baseline and foundation of the engineering design process that we are currently going through. This is the document that shows the process and the necessary approvals that the Augusta Engineering Department received from the Georgia Department of Transportation. A portion of Broad Street is a state route, and the funding through this project is through the Transportation Improvement Act, or TIA, or TSPLOST, funding which is administered by GDOT. Please note that at the end of this document, and I'll scroll down if I can get it to work. Please note that at the end of this document, the approval signatures required went all the way up to the chief GDOT engineer. So this next series of slides is, or this next document that I'm going to present is actually 38 pages long, and obviously we don't have time to go through all 38 pages, so I'm just going to highlight a few in here. You will be provided with the entire striping and marking plan for the Broad Street project. This came from our 60% plans, meaning that the final design is a little bit over halfway done. It still needs some discussion and modification to go through before we get to the next review. There are too many pages to go through here, but I'm going to highlight one page from each section of Broad Street that I mentioned earlier that will serve as a typical example of what is proposed and what the street will look like. The first street that I'm going to highlight is page 26. Page number 2, section 26, page 2. This portion of Broad Street will have dedicated striped bike lanes, 2 through lanes, and a center turn lane. This configuration can easily handle the existing and anticipated future traffic volumes. Traffic flow will also improve because any vehicle wishing to turn left will no longer block the through lane and back up traffic. ADA, pedestrian, and bicycle facilities will also be improved and brought up to current standards. This is section 26, page 18. This portion of Broad Street is between 15th and 13th and will have a protected cycle track, which is a protected bike lane, parallel parking, 4 through lanes, turning lanes at the appropriate locations, and a landscape median. ADA and pedestrian facilities will also be improved and brought up to current standards. This is section 26, page 22. This portion of Broad Street between 13th and 4th will have a protected cycle track or protected bike lane, angled and parallel parking, depending on the section, 4 through lanes, improved and landscape median islands. ADA pedestrian facilities will also be improved and brought up to current standards. This is section 26, page 33. This portion of Broad Street is in Old Town and will have a protected cycle track, 2 through lanes, parallel parking, and an improved median island. ADA and pedestrian facilities will also be improved and brought up to current standards. I apologize, it's loading. Apparently didn't like that. I'll have to get back to that. That slide, or that picture, was going to be an example of what a street looks like with multimodal improvements. I'll try to explain it since it wasn't loading. When I say multimodal improvements and cycle track, what multimodal improvement means is that there is a dedicated space for multiple modes of transportation. So right now, Broad Street and most of the downtown streets are very vehicle-centric. They revolve all around you driving to downtown, parking in downtown, and doing what you're going to do. We're going to incorporate all modes of transportation in the redesign, and that will also include golf carts, scooters, bicyclists, pedestrians, whether you're walking on 2 legs or whether you're mobility impaired and you have to get around in a wheelchair. We want to incorporate all modes of transportation in the new design for all the streets, but in Broad Street in particular. This is the materials plan. I'm not going to really cover this in too much detail. There's a lot of sheets in here, and you'll be able to view them at your leisure. But this plan will show the location and type of materials being installed for Broad Street, including the concrete areas, brick inlays, asphalt, and other permanent hardscape improvements. This slide here, or this plan here, is the landscape plan. I'm not going to cover this one in much detail either because, again, it's many, many sheets. But this will give you an idea of the proposed landscaping and landscape material improvements that are going to be installed along each part of Broad Street. I am going to go to one page in particular. This is page 29-226. This is the area around the Augusta Common and the James Brown statue. As shown, this area will receive significant upgrades from its current state and will be greatly improved. And I'll cover this in another set of photos in just a second. So this is the last set of slides that I'm going to present this afternoon. In the first slide, we wanted to show that with these 4 pictures, that Broad Street will coordinate well with other projects in this area. The concept picture at the top left is the proposed improvement project to the 13th Street Bridge that will be administered and constructed by GDOT. Notice the extension of the Riverwalk path underneath the bridge and a connection to the canal trails and on the other side of the bridge is not shown. The that will connect to the extended network of trails and paths that go all the way through Richmond County and all the way through Columbia County. The 13th Street Bridge will also have a dedicated bike lane that will connect to the North Augusta Greenway on the South Carolina side of the river. So I know it's a little hard to see in that concept picture, but there will be a dedicated bike lane for both north and south directions. So you should be easily traverse that bridge, you know, from SRP Park or wherever you would want to go in South Carolina. The concept pictures on the right, both of the pictures on the right, both the top and the bottom, are concepts of the 5th Street Bridge that's currently under construction. This bridge will connect to Broad Street and provide multimodal improvements and more additional options for the traveling public in downtown Augusta. One is the one at the top left is a nighttime rendering, and then the one on the bottom, top right is a nighttime, and the one on the bottom right is a daytime. The concept picture at the bottom left shows the improvements of the James Brown Linear Park, which I'm going to show some additional pictures on. Here's an overview of the James Brown Park as approved in the Cooper Carey concept plan. And the Augusta Common is at the top in the middle. Here is a close-up of the statue area itself and some features proposed for the linear park. The statue will be raised above street level on a concrete pedestal with a fountain and pedestrian terrace below. The fountains themselves will be level with the lower terrace, and the water will come up from underneath the surface, similar to what you would see in a spray park. The idea is to stand in the circle in the middle of the fountain area, be able to remain dry, but get the full effect of the water feature in the James Brown statue that's up on the pedestal. Let's see. Also notice there is an ADA accessible ramp on the left side of the plaza. Lastly, there are other features such as a covered shade area for seating proposed for the linear park. The colors shown in this slide are for illustrated purposes only, and the final design has not been decided on yet. In closing, the ultimate goal for all of these projects discussed today is to improve the function and the aesthetic appearance of the downtown area. All of these separate projects are being designed with connection in mind. Our objective is to improve the overall multifaceted quality of life in historic downtown Augusta and draw more of our residents and visitors to this area of our city. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th and then the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and appreciate the presentation. My first, what's the timeline right now? Where are we at with that?
So for Broad, we are 60%, and we should be able to finish the design probably end of second quarter, June, July.
And construction starts when?
Yeah, the project will be let and awarded by this body by December of this year. Then actual activity will be after the master 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
When we do this work, will we still allow deliveries to happen on Broad Street?
Yeah, that's we always maintain the access, and definitely in this case too. And that's why we're doing this project a little bit in a different way.
Okay.
We're bringing the contractor into the design process now, so we can work. Designer and contractor will work together to come up with the staging and constructability and access, and then from there we're going to go to the actual bid. So it's called the general contractor, general manager, GC, GMC is a separate procurement process used for these kind of projects.
So this plan was approved in 2016. I remember Cooper Carey. And my question is, can this body make any changes to this plan, or are we stuck with what we have?
Right now, given the time frame and the schedule, we can tweak some minor changes, but any significant change in the design will not be possible because of the schedule we have and the COVID, the shortage of the really professional staff. We're already behind schedule. We're pushing all of our consultants to really finish
Yeah. And I think for me, it's more the landscape. I mean, to have all these trees in downtown when we have a tough time maintaining trees, I understand the need to have some of them, but this is way too many trees. And was a common theme in all the presentations. And then it seems like we never, as a body, I don't think it never came back to us after the presentation. It was more like, this is what we're going to have to, I guess, live with. So that's kind of my concern, is the landscaping. And then one other thing I'm just going to ask about is, I brought up a couple of years ago about making Ellis Street one way. Has that any discussion on that been discussed? Because I think if we did that, number one, you could open up lighting. Number two, you could open up deliveries on that road, because we're gonna have this nice road and to have 18-wheelers on this with all the things that we're putting in just doesn't make sense when we can make Ellis Street one way and make deliveries on that street mandatory.
So traffic engineering did go look at that, and we studied a little bit the feasibility of that idea. I think that's a good idea, because if you've been around Augusta any length of time, you probably realize that Ellis Street, even though it's a dedicated two-way street, it acts more like an alleyway would, with dumpsters and deliveries in the back, and that's where, you know, the tour buses park for the Miller Theater, et cetera, et cetera. So that is definitely something that we could take a look at again and see what sort of benefits and what sort of drawbacks it would have on the traffic flow as a whole. But it is not something I'm opposed to, and I think it would work well if we made it a one-way street and then dedicated certain zones for like dumpsters and things of that nature.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. This comment and question kind of goes along with what my colleague from the 7th was asking. Will this plan pretty much replace all of the existing trees on Broad Street with new ones that are better suited for an urban environment?
Majority of, yes, sir. Most of the tree will be replaced because we're redoing the entire corridor, the sidewalk, all that. So we will not be replacing majority of the trees.
Hopefully we pick a variety that doesn't shed year-round. And also, you made a comment earlier, Mr. Ustry, about North Augusta was extending the Greenway. To my knowledge, they have not funded that or provided any plan for doing that. So is there an update that you want to provide to us?
I'll take that question. They are on board with 13th Street project, but they were working through the funding. Yes, sir. I can get that update and bring it back to this body, but definitely they are working on to find the money. Yeah. And
I get asked this probably every week in regards to the 5th Street Bridge. What's it connecting to on the North Augusta side? Is it just going to stop there? And
I mean, at present, yes, sir. But if you look at their trail master plan, it does shows connectivity. When that's going to happen, I don't know. But in their master plan, it just come all the way to.
So will there be anything in place to kind of prevent some of the foot traffic? And I know that bridge was used quite a bit for, I don't know, it just seems that it's a bridge to nowhere. That's really what it's going to look like. So I'm just trying to understand what the idea is behind it. I mean, I know that it was a bridge that we needed to fix or find a new use for, but just trying to understand that whole plan on the other side.
So I'm not real clear on what's going to happen on the South Carolina side, but the bridge on our side of the river is a very important piece of our overall plan to make downtown Augusta more accessible to everyone, not just people in a passenger car or a vehicle. So the 5th Street Bridge will connect to 5th Street, which will have a bike lane on it, which will connect to Telfair, which has a bike lane on it, which will connect to Broad, which obviously has a bike lane on it. We're going to install bike lanes on 12th Street. And so we're trying to, one of the worst things you can do with a bike lane is just have it go nowhere, have a piece and have it start and stop and all that. So we have a comprehensive plan in place for Augusta, for downtown Augusta specifically, to utilize that bridge and all these TIA projects to really connect downtown in a way that it never has been before. And a lot of people won't ride a bike in a lane, even though by law you can and you're considered a vehicle and you have all the rights of a vehicle. Most people consider it dangerous, you know, and for obvious reasons. But on the South Carolina side, I can't really answer that question, but I can tell you it's a very important component on our side of the river to have this sort of holistic view of how you can maneuver around downtown using the river walk, all the various bike lanes that we're going to install, and all the ADA and pedestrian improvements throughout.
I understand that,
this
but
entire
once you get over into the South Carolina side, there's really nowhere for anybody to ride a bike unless you're gonna go around, jump on Aiken-Augusta Highway, and try to get around to Martintown Road. So that's just kind of my questioning when you're talking about connecting Augusta better and all of that. I know there may be a plan out there for North Augusta to eventually extend that. I just didn't know if we were having conversations to make sure everybody was still on the same page.
Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember when this plan was brought forth, I was sitting out there watching this, and it's just amazing what was going to be done. And, I wish we still had some of the poster pictures that was set around here, and we had a storefront on Broad Street that you could go in and see them. And it's just a good thing. And I'm glad to see that 3 college students came in one day, and they had a plan for the 5th Street Bridge to make a gathering spot on it, and I'll be doggone, that happened, and it's good to see that involvement. And I'll have to agree with my fellow commissioners from the 7th and 8th. We need to look at what kind of trees that we're going to be putting down there. I think that Augusta may even need to look at hiring a tree expert, an arborist maybe, to help look at this. And I'll also support the commissioner from the 7th's recommendation that Ellis Street be changed into a one-way, and my suggestion to go along with that as a old ex-truck driver would be make it one way from east to west. It would be a lot more convenient for drivers, I believe. But this is an exciting time, and I wish we'd already in the middle of this, but of course COVID got in the way and other things got in the way, but it's good to see that it's back on track. And thank the commissioner from the night for asking for this presentation to be made today to renew and relive and to see what we are going to be getting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quick question for Mr. Ussery. There's been a number of requests for additional handicap parking along Broad Street. So I just wanted to know if there was any kind of plan in place to add some more. I know we have a few down there now towards the Central Business District, but what are our plans to have more handicap parking down? And if you can speak to any type of notions around ADA accessibility, sidewalks, businesses, those kind of things, especially during construction, that'd be helpful.
So to answer your question regarding the handicap parking, what's currently there, we just sort of made work with what we already have. And so what we did is we took the first parking stall at the beginning and end of every block and made them an ADA, we made it a handicap parking space. But the formulas, how you determine those things have changed quite a bit since the last time Broad Street was remodeled. So we will make sure that, and I've already looked at the striping plan that you have, that you're going to get a copy of, to make sure that we meet that requirement and exceed it, because that is one thing. But and there's particular zones, such near the Miller Theater, for example, or the what's the one across the street, the Imperial, where you need more of that type of parking, and also the residence that's down there, the Richmond Hill House, I think is the name of it. So we're aware that those particular areas will need additional ADA accessible parking in excess of what's required. And I'm sorry, what was the second question?
During construction, what is your plan to make sure that Broad Street is still ADA accessible even during all this construction?
And that goes along with what Dr. Malik was saying earlier, is that we will get the contractor on board early to help us with construction staging, and we will make sure that you know, much like you would see in a larger city, if we have to put up scaffolding or whatever, you know, we will make sure that there is a clear, marked, accessible path around the construction.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you as well. All right, if there are no further questions, we appreciate your presentation. I believe you may still be in the queue for the next item. Madam Clerk, our next agenda item.
That will be item number 24, is to consider a request from the Richmond County Board of Health to appoint one of the following to the seat held by W. Stewart Flanagan.
No, Madam Clerk, there's 23.
Well, since we're there, I just-
Boykin Road, Travis Road, I'm sorry, Windsor Spring and...
Oh, 23, I'm
Right.
sorry. Okay. Update on the traffic lights on Windsor Spring Road, Boykin, and traffic study at Boykin and Peach Orchard.
Commissioner from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Malik, you sent myself and Commissioner Mason some information yesterday with the traffic light on Windsor Spring Road and Boykin Road. You know, we knew this was coming for quite some time. I think you had the funding. And so it was kind of depressing that we're going to have to wait till, you say, after the Masters?
Yes, sir. Right now, because of the supply chain issue, especially the poles, it's going to take.
Say it again, sir.
Especially for the material and supply chain. So, as we presented the update at the committee meeting, since then, you know, we got the purchase order. We issued a notice to proceed to the contractor. So he did place the material order, and that's what the schedule developed. So, per the schedule, yes, sir, it looks like he'll be able to procure the needed material by end of April, early May, and he's going to be mobilizing in May. We can, if the desire of this body is to start early, we can work, you know, there is a driveway component to that. We can work on the driveway before the muster.
I mean, would the driveway impact, does that right-of-way there, does any lines need to go through that right-of-way there for any particular reason? Underground. I was talking about underground. You're talking about the street light up here, and then you said, well, you can start working on the driveway. So my question to you, that right of way that has no barriers of underground wiring or anything like that.
No, sir. Yeah, we should not have.
Well, I would suggest that you go ahead and start on that on that driveway, and the driveway, Commissioner Mason, and the ones that what it is, if they people coming. Or the Boykin Road coming to Windsor Spring Road, right. That's our property right there, and they have to either go all the way down a half a mile. Some people are making a quick turn and turning in the head on in the traffic. Mm-hmm. So he's asking the permission to start on, go ahead and start on that driveway in the meantime.
Yeah, yes, sir. That's doable. So we work towards that to get it started before muster.
Okay. And so what about the traffic study at Boykin Road and Peach Orchard Road?
So John just completed the review. You wanted to complete?
Yeah, yes, Commissioner. I just completed the review. Our consultant did a really good job. I had no comments or changes. So we're now going to submit that completed study to the Georgia Department of Transportation for their review and comment.
So what did it look like to you?
So it boiled down to, they looked at a bunch of different types of control at that intersection, and a standard traffic signal was the recommended approach based on volume and delay and, you know, all that stuff. So I agree with that, and I had no comments or concerns about that. So we'll submit that as our recommendation to GDOT. It'll start at the district level. They'll review it and approve it, and then it'll have to go to headquarters in Atlanta, and they'll also review it and approve it.
So what's normally your turnaround time? What's normal?
Because it has to go to Atlanta, it'll take several months.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I would like to
Thank you.
Would like a motion to start on that driveway.
Yesterday.
All right, so let me hear from the commissioner from the 4th, and then we'll come back to you. Okay?
Well, actually,
All right,
Mr. Mayor, that's
4th.
what I was hoping, that we just go ahead and give that directive, whether it's in the form of a motion or whatever it takes. We've been fumbling around with that for a little bit. I understand this chain supply issue. I'm not sure how we didn't potentially see that coming, but we are where we are now. One of the questions that I would have is there other alternatives in terms of the supplies that are needed to erect this traffic signal?
Yeah, the real issue is the poles. And I'll give you a little history lesson, I'll make it short. There are only 2 factories in this entire country that make traffic signal poles. One's in Nebraska and one is in Florida. And so anytime you order something of this nature, it takes 3 to 6 months. So this particular contractor believes he can get them in 3 months. But that is really the bottleneck. Also, there are computer components in a traffic signal cabinet, which require semiconductors, which we all know have a shortage. Ford and some other auto manufacturers have had to cut back on their production based on that. And so those are but it's really the poles that's going to dictate when this is completed.
So it's an issue getting the poles. It's an issue getting the poles here. It's an issue for them making the pole.
It's manufacturing the poles. Once they're made, they're shipped, and that doesn't take too long.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, do we need a motion to that effect?
Well, I believe that the Commissioner from the 6th and yourself have been
Make
involved.
a motion to start on the driveway.
Second.
Yeah.
Are we voting? What just happened?
Is there more to this than a driveway?
At this time, that's all you can do, is the driveway. This traffic light is what we needed, and he said, we got to wait a little after Masters for the traffic light.
Is there a project associated with this?
Yes, those 2, they're together.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think.
Administrator Donald.
Yeah, I think as we record the vote, it would simply be in lieu of delays related to the traffic light to begin on. I think that's what you're asking for. It's in lieu of the traffic light portion of the project to begin on the driveway immediately while we await others. But the motion that was made would get it done, and then it's just making sure that it's tied to this project.
And that's driveway on the Boykin Road, Windsor Spring Road side. Is that correct?
Yes,
That's correct.
Okay. Voting.
All right.
Is Mr. Clark and Mr.
Is he-
Dennis Williams out? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they're out. That motion carries with Mr. Dennis Williams and Mr. John Clark out.
I believe we got one final item, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. That would be the appointment to the Richmond County Board of Health. The 2 recommended appointees, Dr. Ronald Spearman and Ms. Ruth Schutler. One of the 2.
All right, hold on. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 4th. He's in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to nominate Dr. Spearman for the expired seat held by Mr. Flanagan.
All right, well, we're taking nominations at this point. All right, we've got a nomination for Dr. Spearman. All right, Chair recognizes he waives. All right, Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 8th.
I request that nominations be closed at this time.
Okay. All right, nominations are closed. Okay. Is it? Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 3rd.
I'm going to nominate a District 3, Mrs. Schuler. Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. Well.
Isn't the nominations closed? Nominations are closed. If it doesn't pass, you can get another shot at it. So what do we?
We took a nomination from the Commissioner from the 4th and then the Commissioner from the 8th. Move that we close nominations. And that was a second to support that. And what's our posture, parliamentary?
Unless the nominations are closed without exception, you should vote to close the nominations.
Okay, so there was an exception.
We should vote to close the nomination. We should take a vote on the motion to close the nominations.
Here we go.
Okay.
Right.
You have to close the nominations. Nominations cannot be closed by one person saying they're closed and seconded. That is merely a motion to close the nominations. A sufficient number of votes, which would be 6, would close the nominations, regardless of the objection.
Okay. All right, what you're voting on now is a motion to close the nominations.
Yes.
With an objection, all right?
So that was Mr. Garrett and Mr. Mason
Huh?
I'm not sure who's
on closing the nominations.
Mr. Garrett made the
And
motion.
the second, Mr. Mason? Okay.
Sure. Yes.
Well, I thought you said it. I mean,
Yes.
I wasn't.
Yes.
All right, voting.
Mr. Clark,
ready to go?
Mr. Jordan Johnson, thank you.
ATL. ATL, baby.
That motion carries 8-2 with Mr. Dennis Williams and Mr. Clark out. So, are we voting on the appointment?
Yes.
There's only one nominee.
Right.
And Madam Clerk, that nominee is Dr. Ronald
Acclamation.
Spearman. So we'll vote to affirm that. There's only one nominee.
And that will be Dr. Ronald Spearman.
Yes.
Correct.
Voting.
That motion carries 8 with Mr. Dennis Williams and Mr. Clark out.
I believe this is the last agenda item. This meeting is adjourned.